Hello everybody, this is Shady. So for today's video, I'm going to be talking about the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. The main reason I'm doing this is because obviously Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is out at the end of the year. I know a lot of people probably just started the series off with Remake and they're probably really confused because there's all of these different games and it's basically a whole series in itself. So I'm just here to clear it up for you. I'm going to keep it pretty brief and simple. So for starters, I'm going to go over the games and media in order of release. And then I'm going to explain them chronologically, and then obviously I'm going to give my suggestion as to where to play and where to start, pretty much, the order to play them in, that is. So obviously, a brief history of what the completion of Final Fantasy VII is. It's basically like a sub-series. It basically turns it into its own meta-series, if you will. So there's tons of different games and everything that are all related in this one world of Final Fantasy VII. And obviously, now to get into it. The first game is obviously the original Final Fantasy VII. This was released back in 2007. In this game, obviously, we play as Cloud Strife as he joins a resistance group called Avalanche to take on the Shinra Corporation, and then things spiral out from there. And he has to take on, he has to also fight off Shinra and the ex-soldier Sephiroth and defeat the ghosts of his past to save the world, pretty much. That's how it goes, really, And obviously, with this game, you've got this original release. You have the Platinum Hits version, which basically just adds an extra disc, which has like the, I think it's a preview disc of Final Fantasy VIII. Then there is also a Big Box PC release, which was released about a year or so later. And then obviously you have the mobile port, which adds these, like a couple of boosters and stuff, I think it was. The only thing with that version is you don't have controller support options and there's no touch controls. There's just the weird like kind of mapped buttons around the screen, which is kind of a bit clunky. That was just the style at the time. So and then obviously a few years later they released the HD versions, which is the most up-to-date version and the one I'd probably suggest unless you're really nostalgic and just want to play it on a PlayStation. That version you'll find on Steam, PlayStation 4/5, Xbox systems and the Switch. So it's a version of play. Also, a really cool thing, if you want a physical version of that one, you can get it on the Switch alongside Final Fantasy VIII as a dual pack, which is really cool. And now moving on. So after that, they announced the completion, I believe it was, or the compilation, sorry. I think it was 2004 or something. And then the first game to come alongside that was in 2004, which was the prequel Before Crisis. So in this game, it's set 6 years before the events of Final Fantasy VII. We play as two Turks as they're doing different jobs for Shinra, and they get embroiled in a plot and stuff, and that's how it goes. This game was Japanese exclusive and only on mobile platforms, so it's a bit difficult to get hold of, really. There is now a fan translation, so there is a way to emulate it and play it, but obviously there's a lot of hoops there, so it's up to you what you do with that. Maybe you want to find a story summary of it, whatever. But yeah, anyway, next up, and after that, they released the movie, Advent Children. So this movie is released like a couple of years after the events of the game, and of the original game, that is. And obviously we, again, meet up with Cloud. What happens is there's this thing called the geostigma, which is kind of like this disease that's infecting the world and the live stream. So people are slowly dying. There's kind of like, you see this black sort of stuff going on around their body and it's slowly poisoning people. And then what happens is Shinra, of all people, approaches Cloud, and then he explains to him that there's these three boys or lads, call themselves the Sons of Genova, I believe it is, and they're kind of wreaking havoc and talking about how they're going to change the world, whatever. And then Cloud kind of has to reluctantly kind of team up with them to take these guys out, and it kind of goes on from there. This movie is pretty much just a load of like epic kind of fan battles and stuff, and it's just really sort of fan servicey, but it's a lot of fun. It's a cool movie, I think. There is this original version. It's about an hour and a half long, I think it is, an hour and 40 minutes, and then this version you can also get in UMD. And then a few years later, I think it's like 2009, we're jumping a bit ahead slightly, but they also released this version, the complete version. So obviously when the Blu-ray format came out, they decided to go back and kind of redo the movie in 4K, or HD, sorry. But then they also added in extra footage. I think this one is just over 2 hours or so. They added an extra 25-ish minutes of content in this. So yeah, this is like the most sort of available version. You can get this on streaming services, and there is also a 4K Blu-ray available for those interested. One other cool thing is there is also, from what I remember, I think this might be Japanese exclusive, but there was also like a PS3 bundle that came with this game, and it has like the Fenrir symbol on it on the PlayStation, which is the bike that Cloud uses in Advent Children. That's the one you see in the sequence where he's fighting off the wolves and stuff. Another thing is, obviously, if you want to watch this other original theatrical cut, you have to get this version of the UMD, which is kind of a little bit annoying. That's something they do sometimes when they do original cuts. They don't add the original, when they do these update cuts, annoyingly they don't add these like updated versions, which is a bit annoying. But anyway, moving on. Then after that, obviously that was released 2005, and within the same year, a bit later, they released Dirge of Cerberus, which is a sequel to Advent Children, released set a couple of years after the events of the movie. And obviously, as you can see in the front, we're actually playing as Vincent Valentine. I'm going to show you the back. There's a really cool cover there, or back to the thing there. So obviously, Vincent has to help take on the group called Deep Ground, who are like this kind of terrorist sort of group trying to wreak havoc, that sort of stuff. And this game actually changed things up. It's not an RPG like the other ones. Well, it kind of is. It's actually like a third-person shooter, but it's a PS2 one, so it's a little rough compared to, if you're used to things like, Gears of War, Tomb Raider, Uncharted, those sorts of newer ones, The Last of Us. It's going to feel a bit rough because, they didn't quite have the genre down at that point. Still a fun game. You still have like the materia system. You still have levels and stuff like that. And the actual Deep Ground villains are really cool. For those who have played the remake, you will recognise, you get to see both, I think it's Neo in Yuffie's DLC, and you get to see Vice as well if you pick up the integrated version of remake. So yeah, this is where they originate from if you're interested. Also, another thing which is kind of strange, a little aside, is that this game actually has keyboard and mouse support, which is very strange for a PS2 game. And obviously, yeah, as it stands, this is only available on here, but I'm pretty certain we're probably going to get some kind of remaster. So, that's another thing. And then, obviously after that, for the 10-year anniversary, 2007, they released this, Crisis Core. So this is actually a prequel to the original game. This is released this is set 7 years before the events of the original game. And we're playing as Zack Flair. I'll just show you the back there. And we kind of see the events that lead up to his last stand and that sort of stuff. And we get to see what actually happened in Nibelheim with the Mako reactor and stuff, which was really cool. So like this is a definite must for like hardcore fans, I would say. What's really cool is this has like a kind of, it's an action RPG, kind of essentially has like a early version of the 7 remake battle system, which is really cool. Obviously this was originally released on PSP and it was like stuck on here for so many years until it finally, like 15 years later, last year, came out, got a remaster, Final Fantasy Crisis Core Final Fantasy 7 Reunion, because Crisis Core Final Fantasy 7 wasn't a long enough name. So yeah, this is now available on PC, Switch, PlayStation and Xbox, so you can play it pretty readily available, which is cool. And then obviously after that, what was it, in 2020, I'm looking at the back here, you think I should know as a Final Fantasy fan, but yeah, they finally released the Final Fantasy 7 Remake. So obviously this game was, kind of not just an entire remake of the first game. It's actually an episodic thing, so we're actually getting 3 games. This one is just set in the Midgar section. It kind of expands it and does the same thing. This game kind of, obviously the story pretty much starts off the same, but then it takes its own turns and it's kind of a separate thing. I'll get into that when I explain the whole timeline thing, but yeah, obviously I think it's worth playing even if you play the original, and if you play the original, play the remake, or vice versa, you know what I mean. But now obviously let's go into the actual timeline itself. I've kind of explained it a little bit, but I'll kind of recap. So obviously it starts off with Crisis Core, which is where everything begins, where we play as Zack, and then before Crisis, where we have the Turks, and then the events of the original game, which then leads into a couple of years later into Advent Children, and then a couple of years after that, Dirge of Cerberus. And now, obviously, to explain, we have the remake, which, like I suggested, is kind of its own thing. I'm pretty sure this is going to be my little theory time now. Probably going to be completely wrong, but there's events that happen at the end of the game and throughout that suggest that this is actually a split timeline and kind of its own thing. So it kind of goes in its own direction. Because, not to spoil too much, but it's kind of suggested that Sephiroth is actually not the original Sephiroth. So I think, again, this is my little theory, but at the end of the events of this, there's a line that Sephiroth says, like, I will not just be a dream, or I will, I'll never truly die. So for me, that suggests possibly that Sephiroth there somehow maybe traveled the live stream or something and managed to create an alternate timeline, or there's going to be something that maybe we see the events of. Obviously, I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, that's pretty much it. And then obviously another thing I want to finally wrap up by suggesting maybe what order you want to go into, or how I would suggest playing these games. Like I said, obviously if you play the remake, that's where you started, but I'm going to say for those newcomers, obviously start off with the original, because going chronologically is going to be a bit confusing, because like before Crisis Core, you kind of need prior knowledge to understand what the hell is going on, characters and events and blah blah blah. So yeah, you start off with this, which creates all the context you're going to need. Then go into Crisis Core, and then before Crisis, and then obviously Advent Children, Dirge of Cerberus, and then the remake. One good thing though, which is going to really help, because obviously I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't want to mess about with emulation, getting the fan translation for Before Crisis. There's actually going to be a mobile app released called Ever Crisis, which is going to be essentially like an episodic thing, retelling the stories of all of the games, this whole compilation. So that'll be a really easily accessible way of doing it. It looks like I think it's gonna be turn-based or something. I remember seeing gameplay of it. It does look kind of cool. That's one way of looking into it if you just want to quickly power through, get an idea of the stories before going into Rebirth. Obviously, like I said, Remake is going to be a trilogy, so we got Rebirth at the end of this year, and then obviously we're going to have the third game, which I don't know, probably going to be called Reunion or something beginning with an R anyway. I think they said that anyway. But yeah, another thing I want to talk about is obviously there has been other little side things as well. You have a little animated short called Before Smile. I think that's in here. I can't exactly remember, but there's like a couple of little animated shorts that are like kind of go alongside that. And then we do have there is a little story. What was it called again? It's like Twin Lives or something. There's a little story that's a side story that has both Tifa and Aerith, which kind of goes alongside the remake. And then for those interested, you do have also the Final Fantasy remake Ultimania. If you're really interested in lore and stuff, that's a big kind of encyclopedia / thing for anyone interested. And then you do have, I think there was also the, what was it, like the strategy guides. This is a weird thing to suggest, but they do have little bits of information for those who want to piece together some lore and stuff. So, those are all extra things for you guys anyway. But anyway, I think I've rambled on enough, and hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully this cleared things up for people. Definitely give these games a go. They're amazing. The Final Fantasy series is great. Can't go wrong with any of these games. But again, like I said, start off with this one and then move on to the rest. Anyway, if you did enjoy the video, then it'd be great to have a like. If you want to, subscribe if you want. My channel is more kind of gaming related stuff. I just kind of do anything. It's kind of a bit all over the place, but pretty much gaming related stuff. So hope you enjoyed. Have a great rest of your day. See you again.